afternoon, everybody. So glad that y'all are here joining us. This is Jessica from All About Art in Enterprise, Alabama, and we are here doing our Gnome painting. For all of those who got the class kit, we are so thankful for you and getting that, and just looking forward to doing this project with you today. So if you have any questions, shoot us a little message. We are doing a pre-recording of this, and going forward we're going to do pre-recordings of our videos just so that you can stop and start as you would like. So guys, thank you so much. Just really looking forward to the future of these videos to come. This is just the tip of the iceberg, if you will. So all right, so I want to talk about our materials. First off, you do have your palette if you got the class kit, or if you're joining us, you can do this on a canvas or other surfaces as well. But I just love this little palette wood here. Painting on wood with the acrylic paints is very similar to painting on your canvas and things. It's a little more absorbent, so it tends to dry a little bit quicker, and also it sometimes takes a little extra paint just because it does sort of absorb that pigment. So just kind of keep that in mind. We want to paint a little bit heavier on this. So you've got your surface, should have that traced out for you. If you do not have it traced out, you can do that now, or if you want to reestablish your lines a little bit, you can. I do suggest keeping those lines nice and light. I've done them a little bit darker so that you can see on the video, but if you will, just keep them a little bit lighter, just makes it easier to cover as we paint. In your kit, you're gonna have your piece of paper here that shows you what the sample looks like. Kind of keep that on hand just for your reference. Of course, you have the sample in the video as well, but this kind of gives you a little closer up look. And we have our brushes. We have kind of a bigger square brush, a medium round brush, and a smaller round brush. If you've got a pencil, that's great if you need to establish any of those lines. I've also included a little bit of a little credit card here. You can use anything, just an old plastic card, one of those, what are they, loyalty cards or anything, just something that's kind of got some sturdiness to it. We're going to use that to kind of do our cool background here. I have a little palette just for a little bit of mixing. We're not going to do a ton of mixing on our palette. Most of my mixing happens on the surface because it gives it a lot more texture that way, but we do have that palette. And then of course you have your paints. So in our little paint kit, we have our red, we have our light blue, our white, we have a light green, dark green, black, some dark blue, and then I've got some small containers. This is a dark brown, a light brown, and a yellow. So we're going to be using all of these colors. You are welcome to change this up however you would like. A lot of times I'll encourage you to kind of change it up to make it more your own. So if you don't want a red hat, you can do any color hat. We're going to be kind of working on the background first so you can think about that as we go. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know, but we're going to kind of dive in here, okay? So let's talk about this background. We want to bring this sky color down to about midway on the feet. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to be using this little credit card technique. So I am going to use my palette for this. Go ahead and first you can dip your brushes in the water. And you don't want to keep them in there all the time, but just while you're kind of painting, it's not a bad idea just to kind of keep those in the water, at least damp, really nicely cleaned off while you go, because while you're painting, because we don't want that paint to dry on the inside of the brushes. This acrylic paint will stain your clothes. it will also ruin your brushes if you don't wash it out really good. So just kind of keep that in mind. So what I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna take my big brush, wipe it off on the side, just kind of dab it on your paper towel or rag. And we're gonna grab a good bit of this light blue. You can go ahead and get like one of those wells if you have the class kit. And I want to get about half, ooh, the little divider's wanting to come out. About half or more of the dark blue. I'm going to rinse that out. Would not be a bad idea to get your white first. Probably should have done that. So I'm gonna wipe that off. And then I'm gonna get a big scoop of that white. All right, so this is what we're gonna use with our credit card to kind of establish that background. Okay, so I'm gonna scoot this guy a little out of the way, bring him center. So I'm gonna take my credit card and I want to kind of scoop up the paint. Okay, so I'm kind of scooping it. And then I'm gonna light pressure start laying in that color. And I can get a little bit of the dark blue, kind of pull that in. And also some of the white. And I want to bring that right up on the hat. You can kind of use the edge of it to go right up on the hat. And then kind of bigger, lighter strokes to sort of cover that background. So just grabbing a bit, kind of scooping that up. And I'm just gonna spread that light pressure. Now, here's the key when you're doing a texture like this with a credit card or a palette knife, kind of same idea. You want to just pull very lightly. If you scrape hard, you see it's gonna pull off the paint. But when I just kind of lightly press, almost just laying the gravity of the card on there, it will get a lot of texture. Now certain parts you might want to be a little more of the light blue or the dark blue or white, up to you. I kind of like to keep it a little bit lighter. And you don't want to overwork it. You know, what you're doing is you're kind of mixing the paint as you go, as you're kind of putting pressure here. And the more that you press, the more it's gonna mix and you're gonna lose that cool texture. So we don't wanna do that. We wanna leave the texture. I'm gonna grab a little bit of white. This is very, very blue. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of white and just kind of lightly lay that in there. I can sort of wipe off the excess and then just kind of the gravity of the card, let that kind of spread that white a little bit. Awesome, so just little scoops, small scoops at a time. If you get inside the hat or you get inside the face or anything like that, or the beard right now, it's okay. We're gonna be covering all that up, so don't worry about it. You should hear a little bit of like noise when you're putting this on there, but it shouldn't be, you know, like crazy scraping, okay? Just a little bit of scraping. Just kind of working our way around. If it gets a little intense in a certain area, just kind of go over it again, you know, that'll kind of calm it down a little bit. Now, this is the beauty of the pre-recorded video. So, you know, I'm gonna move sort of quickly on this. but at any time, if you want to pause it, you know, take your time, just work on this step, get it how you want it, and then you can, you know, start it up again and move forward with me. We so appreciate you guys and how y'all been supporting us during this crazy time. I love the credit card. This is like a technique that you can use for lots and lots and lots of things. Next week, we're gonna be using the credit card next Saturday. We're using the credit card on the church painting. So if you have not gotten that class kit and you're interested, that's gonna be really cool too. We're gonna use that. Now you can do the same effect with a palette knife. But you know what, just having like a little card like this, it's so inexpensive and you probably have it on hand. So you don't have to have a super fancy special palette knife. You're just looking for something with a straight edge. All right, so I'm gonna kind of finish this up here. Now, if you would like, it is a good idea to paint the edges, and you can do that with a brush, and I probably would go ahead and do that now while you've got this blue on here, and then you won't be fighting it later on or getting it up on the edges where you don't want it or anything. So when you're painting the wood, it is a good idea to really finish out those edges, just in case you see them. Then it looks a little more established or finished. So I can just take my medium brush, wipe it off on the side, and just turn my palette, get that light blue or the dark blue or a combination, and just run that along the edge there. And if it gets over a little bit, you know, just kind of brush that in so it looks like it's a part of it. Because this background is so like crazy, painting the edges at this point is really not a problem. But if you were going to have something that was a little more, you know, solid and stuff, you may want to paint those edges first so that you're not fighting it on the inside of the painting. All right, so I would encourage you to go all the way around with that, with the blue. And then down here, it's kind of like our painting is just flowing over the edges. So I'll do green when I get to that point on the edges. All right, lovely. So we're gonna let that set up. If you wanna take your brush and, you know, put some little strokes in there, you can. If you want to keep it really just that credit card texture, that's great too. I'm going to lift this up so that you can see it a little bit closer. So lots of texture in that. And this one today ended up being a little bit darker, but you know, you can play with it. You can add more of the light blue if you'd like, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and go into our hat. The hat, you can do any color that you want, and we do want this edge to be a little dry. We don't want it to be super, super wet so that we're not pulling a bunch of blue in here. You have an option, you can go ahead and like dry it with a hair dryer. You can be real patient and wait, which is fine. For the purpose of this video, I am just gonna kind of rub these edges just a little bit. I'm kind of just creating a dry edge for myself, which is an option too. Okay, it's so absorbent, so if you just kind of thin the coat a little bit, it really dries very quickly. Okay. So for my hat, I'm gonna do the red hat, and we just want to create a little bit of dimension in the hat. So it's gonna be kind of mainly red on this side. I'm gonna pull in a little bit of white on the right side, so that we have, you know, little dimension. I'm gonna do the same thing on where the hat is kind of tilted over here. So I'm gonna use my bigger brush. I wanna rinse that out really good. Wipe it off on the side. Dab it. And I'm gonna grab that red. This is a really beautiful, this is called naphthalene carmine. It is a really rich, beautiful red. And see, if I get a little bit of that blue in there, it's really okay. It almost looks like a little bit of a shadowing on it. So I want to work this a section at a time because I want the color to sort of blend as I bring in that white. And this paint does dry kind of quickly, so I'm just gonna dip my dirty brush in the white, and I'm gonna hit this right side. Now I've got a little bit of blue in there, it's okay. And then I'm just gonna blend that in toward the red. And it's gonna create that little highlight. I'm just gonna sort of work that little bit of blue in. Won't be too noticeable. It is best to let it dry in between so you're not fighting that. Grab a little bit more white. Have a bit of a lavender feel on this right side. I'm gonna do the same thing down here. You can switch to your smaller brush. Bring that over. Get to this side, I'm gonna grab that little bit of white. Just kind of work that up. And take a little more white on this side and a little more red, just to kind of calm down that little bit of blue that came in there. And see, that's the beauty in it. If you get a little bit of color where you don't want it, you can sort of work it out. So we're just kind of creating sort of a highlight on that right side. And bring that hat down just a little bit more on this side. You can change up sort of the shape of the hat. These gnomes have like all sorts of cute little hats. All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing on this, on the little tip of the hat. We're gonna go down the side here, and the top. Grab my little bit of white, hit that inside with the white and the red, create that little highlight. Now you can switch again to that. I use my big brush a lot, but you can switch to the smaller brush for sure. And see, really that little bit of blue, it kind of gives it a little shadow too. So don't be afraid to have that in there. we're gonna have a little more of the white brought in. So this is not like it. We're gonna do some other little highlight action, but we can kind of start there. Okay. All right, so I think that's good on the hat. Now, this same idea would apply for a red hat or a blue hat or a green hat. Although I would suggest maybe doing like a green hat since you have a blue background, or a yellow hat. Something that would contrast with your sky would be good. Okay, that's awesome. So we're gonna let that kind of hang out. I'm just gonna run my brush along where this beard is gonna go and get off some of this extra blue, just so I don't get that blue. I definitely don't want to pull the blue into my beard. I do want to keep that separate. Awesome. Okay. So if we want to, we can go ahead and put in the brown for the shoes. Kind of let that set up. And then by that time we'll have, this will be nice and dry so we can start working on the beard. So I'm gonna take, I've got my light brown and my dark brown. And I'm gonna start with my light brown with my medium round brush. And I really just, I wanna put that kind of all over the whole shoe. Most of the shoe, about like at least about 3/4 of the way of the shoe. And we are going to pull, we're going to pull in this dark brown on the bottom. So I'm going to grab that dark brown, hit it on the bottom, and see it's not mixed right now, but we're going to just sort of pull that up into the bottom of the shoe. And we're going to blend that out a little bit. Just gives a little bit of dimension. And if it gets a little too much, like a little bit goes a long way with that dark brown. So you can just take like a clean, damp brush and kind of meld that out a little bit. Blend it a little bit more. He's got kind of a heavier foot on this side. All right. Now you should have in your beard kind of some lines for like his little mustache. And we're gonna be just sort of going up to the mustache, and then we're gonna put that, the mustache sort of on top after we establish our other parts here. But we're gonna use our white and just a little bit of the black, okay? So you don't want, man, that black, y'all, it goes super, super far. So you need to be very, very light-handed with that. Again, I do like to sort of mix on the palette because it's going to give it a lot more texture that way. So I'm going to use a lot of white and I'm going to pull in just the tiniest bit of black, just like on the tip of your brush, okay? So please, please be very, very careful with that. And I want to work a little section at a time. So we'll kind of work on this left side and sort of work our way over to cover his whole beard. But I want to start by putting my white. Just gonna be in this little section here. I'm using my medium brush. You can go a little inside the nose, that's fine. And while this is wet, okay, that's about as much as I'm gonna do right now. While this is wet, I'm gonna take a little bit of black. I'm even gonna just dab that black off so that there's very, very little. See how far that went? Just the tiniest bit. And I'm just gonna kind of go back and forth through that white to meld that out. And then you can add a little more white. And it instantly kind of creates a little bit of a hair texture. So that's nice. A little more white. And just kind of play with it. Do keep in mind though, the more that you go over it, the more it's gonna mix. So I'm gonna go up to my shoe here, kind of around it. Again, I have not added any more of the black, only white. So I'm gonna go to this next section, put in more white. This is kind of like under the mustache. So that those hairs, think about the direction of the hairs and how they would fall. And I can just use where I kind of dabbed off my brush to get that little bit of black on there. Pull that through. But you want those brush strokes to move with the shape of the beard. That's what's going to make it look a little more natural. So just that little dab of black in there. Have not established the mustache yet. Okay, just kind of going around that right now. So his beard is just going to sort of disappear off of the palette. Who knows how long this thing is? All right, I'm going to go up here, again, another section. Bring in that white, heavy white. Can go a little inside the nose. It's all right, all good. Getting that little dab of black. Pulling that through. Now, hey, you know what? I'm doing, of course, kind of like a gray beard situation, but any of my gingers out there, you know, if you wanted to do a ginger beard, like a red-orange beard, that would be so cute. I'd probably pair a ginger beard with like a green hat. That would be really adorable. So don't be afraid to change up the hair color too. And it would be the same idea. So if I were doing like a ginger, and you were using the same palette, I'd probably do like red or the yellow with a little bit of the red pulled through, because red's really intense. So that would be really, really cool. You could do that. Or you could do a brown, you know, brown beard. All right, so now we've kind of got a good establishment of that main beard there. And pull through a little bit more of the black. Just grabbing that little smidge that I had worked out. Okay, that's good. You just want to work that while the paint is wet. If it dries out and you try to go back on, it's just going to be really streaky on top. Right now, it all kind of blends together really nicely. If you want to establish a little bit of like a shadow right under the hat, you could put a little smidge more of the black right up under the hat and kind of spread that out. That would be kind of give him a little bit of a shadow on the beard. Okay, just a thought there. All right, so let's look at the mustache. And I'm not worried that this isn't dry yet. I'm just gonna go for it. So the mustache, you wanna kinda do that. Maybe you've been really good and sort of didn't go inside your drawing, and that's great. The mustache is gonna be a little bit maybe sort of finer hair look. So I'm gonna establish the base with my medium brush, but then I'm gonna switch to my little brush. So I'm gonna kind of make a little upswing here and down, and then let it kind of flare out to a tip, and then up. So you make it kind of a round, it's almost like wings looking. So kind of, we can go under, and then let it flare out. He can have a really crazy, fluffy mustache. You can do like a handlebar mustache. You can get really creative with that. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of black with my, again, dabbing it off with my tiny brush. And I'm gonna pull that in from the center out. See, that's a lot, so I'm gonna grab some white. Sort of calm it down. Get that texture in there. Think about those brush strokes, okay? You need to kind of go up and out. Bring it to a point there. And my, even my beard is a little bit different, or my mustache, than it was the other day. So kind of changing it up. I'm gonna kind of make sure it's standing out. So on the kind of outsides here, I'm gonna put a little extra white so that it'll stand out from the beard. Kind of establish that color difference. Lots of texture in there. And the other way you can do that is, you know, if your mustache is a little bit darker and you want to separate it, you can put sort of white up on like where the beard is to separate. Okay, we're gonna let that hang for a second. I'll probably bring in a little more highlight on that beard. Okay, so my background here, just kind of tapping that. Still, my sky's a little wet still, so I'm gonna let that hang for a moment. I'm gonna switch to my medium brush. Wipe that off, damp brush. And I'm gonna go ahead and paint in the nose. The nose is gonna be mainly white with some of the brown, and depending on how dark you want him to be, you can add more of the brown, more of the brown. But this is the light brown. So I'm gonna lay in the white. for my brown too soon. I'm gonna lay in my white. Establish that nose shape. And it's gonna kind of sit on top of the whole mustache there. And then I'm gonna grab a little bit of the brown. I would kind of start with a little, and you can always add more. And you can sort of blend that out. And if you want to have a little bit of more dimension in the nose, then we can put like a more sort of a highlighted area on one side. Given that our highlight is on the side of the hat, this side of the hat, I'd probably do my highlight on this side of the nose. So got a kind of a base, kind of a light tan. So we'll leave that at that, and then I'm going to grab a little bit more of the brown. I'll put it a little bit heavier on this left side, and also right under the hat. I'm going to dab that off, and just with my kind of less paint on the brush, I'm going to work that out toward the right side. And that'll make a little bit of a highlight. I'm gonna add a little bit more. And the more you work that, the more it'll kind of blend. Work that out. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So I'm just turning my paper towel into itself as you go here. All right, so my hat is nice and dry at this point. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my yellow, and I'm gonna put in my little patch. And because yellow is very transparent on its own, I'm gonna grab a little bit of white as well, okay? So white and yellow. And you can put this patch anywhere you want. I'm just gonna kind of establish it right here. And you can make it kind of as big or any shape you want. Just sort of blend that in. Okay, I'm just gonna lift this up, let you see a little bit closer. All right, getting down to it here. So I'm gonna go down to my grass. We're gonna let that set, kind of set up, and then we'll come back and add some white in there. We're gonna add some white highlights kind of all over. So then I'm going to put in my grass. So we want to do our dark green and our light green. And we're going to be doing kind of a pulling up technique. So this is where you sort of lay your brush down. Let me see if I can show you a little bit closer. So I'm going to put my brush down, kind of facing down, and then I flick it up, flick it up, flick it up. And this is not showing a really good example of it, but okay, so you're kind of flicking the brush up, and you can get that kind of grassy texture So I'm gonna lift my brush, and I'm starting with the dark green. I'm gonna go around my beard and just a little up on the shoes. I'm gonna grab my light green, and that's naturally just gonna mix a little bit. Gives it a little more dimension. Pull that up there. Pull that up. And you can use your smaller brush if you need to get a little more of a tip on the grass. Kind of pull down using that light green, because that dark green goes super far, and so you can kind of use what's there. And we're gonna kind of pull that in. Okay. All right, awesome. And then if you want, I mean, you can pull a little extra of the dark green in there. Just another layer. Just depending on how thick you want it to be or how textured you want it to be. He's just hanging in the grass. Awesome. So then we're gonna use our white. And I want to put in a few highlights. So I'm gonna put, like, with my little brush, a little highlight on the tops of his shoes. I wanna put some little squigglies around the hat. Awesome. And guys, as you're doing this, please don't forget, we would love for you to put your finished product pictures in the comments of this video. Love seeing those finished products. Y'all are doing such a good job on all of these. So I'm just kind of putting little highlights here and there. Can do kind of a upstroke, downstroke right there, maybe like a little fold in the hat. Little highlights. And if you want to make those highlights a little less harsh, you can take a little bit of water and just kind of mellow them out a little bit. Little highlight on the nose. And then I am going to go back in my little mustache there and add a little more white on the outsides of the mustache, just to help it sort of separate a little bit more. A little more texture in the beard. And then I'll take, with that little brush, I'm just gonna make like these little stitches along the outside of the patch with the white. Okay. All right. And then our final part here is going to be putting in our little clouds. So this is pretty dry here. If you need to let it dry a little bit longer, you can. You do want that to be nice and dry. So I'm going to take my white, I'm just going to sort of lay it in nice and thick. And these are just kind of little squishy clouds. They're going to sort of disappear behind. And I like the clouds to be a little bit skinnier in part of it, and then a little bit thicker. And you kind of want the bottom of the cloud to be sort of straight across if you can, for the most part. So just really laying that in there, thick paint. And then we've got our little cloud kind of showing up on the corner there. Beautiful. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it. You can continue to add to this however you would like. It would be cute if you wanted to, if you're gonna make this into a door hanger, you could put a Gnome Sweet Gnome, right? Like Home Sweet Home. If you're gonna leave it just like it is, it's great to just kind of stand up, even next to your door or inside the house somewhere. Just a beautiful little spring piece. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this. We are looking forward to doing lots more videos for you guys, and you know, give us some feedback. If you wanna comment or send us a message through Facebook. We also are planning on getting this onto a YouTube channel and things like that. So lots of great things to come. We appreciate you guys, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Look out for more classes and more class kits from All About Art. Thank you guys so much.